this is David for Big Bits, and in this video we're going to take a look at strategy alerts. This is a new feature added to TradingView which allows you to add alerts onto your strategies as opposed to just your indicators or your studies, if you're more familiar with PineScript as they're referred to. So we're going to take a look at that, and we're also going to look at a small change to PineScript for the if statement, which basically just enable the else if, whereas before you had to kind of nest things. It's a little bit better now to where you don't have to actually nest everything. It can kind of be in line, so that's good. And let's see, I have created some custom code here that we're going to go over, but first it's probably a good idea to talk about the actual strategy alerts themselves. As you can see from the update in their blog, it gives you a nice brief overview of what you can expect. You can see that there is the typical alert window, but what you're going to have to do is you're actually going to have to create your alert from the strategy tester section, and I'll actually show you this in just a moment. Let's see. And so one thing that's really important, and we'll go over strategy alerts in a lot more detail in just a moment, is that this alert isn't like your typical indicator alert. It will trigger the alert when the trade occurs or when the order is executed, not necessarily when the conditions are first met. And that's probably a little bit confusing, but if you're familiar with the strategies on TradingView, you'll notice that the conditions that you're looking for can basically only be triggered sometimes at the end of candles, and the trade doesn't happen until the next candle. So if your conditions get met on the previous candle, the trade doesn't typically happen until the current candle. And that might be confusing, I know, but just keep that in mind, that it's only when your order is executed, and that is something that's very important to know. So I'll actually go ahead and let me add in a strategy here. I'm not going to use the one that we have the code for here just yet, because I want to show you just kind of how this works. We'll go to one of my strategies, and we will go down to one of the tutorials. Alright, you can see here in the strategy tester, you can just click add an alert. It's really simple. All you do is tell it, this is your condition, which is basically just your indicator or your strategy. Now, looking at this, it actually looks like you could probably also do it from up here just by selecting the strategy as a condition, but you'll notice you don't get to choose any other conditions for the actual strategy itself. You are limited to when the orders or the trades get executed. So you'll also need to pay attention to the variables in the message if you want custom messages in your alerts. Now, we'll go into a little bit more detail now. I'm going to go ahead and get this off our chart, go back to our code, and then let's pull up this. Now, this is their help section for the strategy alerts, and I've highlighted some really important stuff that you'll want to know if you're going to be looking at strategy alerts. Now, the first one is that if you are using this to automate your trading, it can lead to unexpected results because you have to take in account to the limits of how the actual strategies behave on TradingView. I've already kind of touched on that just a little bit, but they highlight very importantly some of the main reasons why you should be worried, or at least account for the limitations in the strategies themselves. So the first one is that strategies are more susceptible to repainting than indicators. So if you don't know what repainting is, essentially when you're doing your indicator, you're coding an indicator or a strategy on TradingView, when you create the indicator, it is actually calculated in real time. So whenever you plot something on the chart, you can also remove it from the chart as well. So you can think of that as repainting, and you can also think that when you plot something on the chart in real time, that say you're just plotting the price, the current price on a line, that line on the current bar goes up and down constantly with the price as it moves within the current candle. So that's something to keep in mind, that those points can move up and down within the current candle. But if you're only worried about the close of the candle, then you can have certain instances where your code could overwrite previous data. I know this is typically for indicators, but uh, please just pay attention. If they're telling you to worry about repainting, you probably need to make sure you test these out thoroughly before you go into any sort of automated trading. Now, none of this, of course, is financial advice or anything, so I'm not telling you that you need to do that, but it's something I think you personally should probably do. Now, they also have talked about their engine managing strategy alerts. So this is their back end service that handles the alerts, and it's not actually connected to your broker or your exchange, so they can't synchronize your orders and positions. And that's something I don't think a lot of people actually realize. So uh, I've highlighted in yellow two important parts from this. I'm just going to kind of read these because I haven't memorized everything on here. But an order executed on the chart may not be executed by your broker. This could lead to a situation where your strategy appears to have closed a losing position when in reality the losing position is still open and the market is moving against you. So essentially what it's saying is you were perhaps in a position and you got a signal to close that particular position, but on TradingView it shows that it is closed because that's how the strategy operates. But on your broker or the exchange you're working with, your position isn't actually closed because the order failed or some other reason prevented it from actually happening. So essentially the main thing here is that the positions that you see in the strategy tester and plotted on your chart with the strategy tool, those are not necessarily in sync with the data for your positions on your actual broker or your exchange. So it's very important to monitor those if you are doing this. And the other example they have is if you are holding a short position while your strategy is holding a long position, the strategy then may send a sell order to close a long position when in reality your short position on the broker side will increase. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The last major point they have is that an alert will be stopped if it triggers too often. Now this is, I believe, for all types of alerts, but the rule is more than 15 times in 3 minutes, it will stop it. So if you're trying to do like high frequency trading, like what's that, like every 10 to 15 seconds or so to get an alert here, then you will be kind of out of luck because you can only have so many alerts from this particular alert that you've set up. It can only trigger so often, so keep that in mind as well. Now, when do the strategy alerts actually trigger? We've talked about this a little bit before. The strategy alerts trigger when the strategy executes an order, and that doesn't necessarily correspond to the time when that order is placed. So there is a big difference. If you're noticing any difference in your actual strategy and the alerts coming out, you can probably pinpoint that to the execution versus when the order is actually placed. And that's something to keep an eye on. I have not used the strategy alerts. This is a brand new feature, so this is something I'm going to be keeping in mind for myself as well. And let's see, we've already talked about how to add the alert and how do the strategy alerts work. Let me see. So we've already talked about their back-end service for the alerts. The alerts, the way that service works, if you haven't noticed this before, this will probably open your eyes to that. But when you make an alert, it copies essentially your chart with your indicator on it with your alert settings, and it basically creates a new instance of your indicator, and it will monitor that instance of the indicator. It doesn't monitor the instance of the indicator you have on the chart. It monitors the one that is associated with your alert that you've set up. So for example, the volume indicator down here, this indicator, this instance of volume indicator is on this chart. If I were to create an alert based on the volume, there would be another instance of volume created on another chart, essentially on the back end in their alert system, that keeps the alert settings for that particular instance of the volume. And if you change something And that's what this is all about. For any change to your chart strategy settings to be reflected in your alert's behavior, you need to delete the previous alert and create a new one. That is because the instance of the indicator or strategy that you have saved in your settings for your alert doesn't get updated when you update the instance of the strategy on your chart, because they're two different instances. So you'll have to update it here, and then you'll also have to delete and recreate the alert on the alerts tab itself. So that's pretty important to remember, and that actually goes for the regular alerts as well, which is something I noticed a while back, and I just really haven't brought up on the channel before. But we've already talked about that it triggers the alert when the strategy is executed on the broker emulator, and it says notifications are not sent for orders on historical bars. So when you first load the strategy on there, you're not going to get alerts for all the previous bars that it's back testing for. So that's good to know. Otherwise you'd get a ton of alerts. Now, the alerts are only triggered for orders executed in real time. That basically just reinforces the idea that it's not for historical bars, it's real time. And more than one notification can be issued in the same bar, but as mentioned above, the alert will be stopped if it triggers more than that many times. So yes, you can have multiple alerts within the same bar, and you can use placeholders just like you can with the other alerts with the indicators to customize your alert notification message. And one thing you'll want to pay close attention to is this particular placeholder, strategy.order.alert_message, which allows you to create a custom message for the type of order that you're using. So if you're placing a buy order, you can have a custom message for the buy order as opposed to the sell order, which can have its own custom message. And you can also pass in some of this other information as well. And I'll show you how to actually do this right now, and we're going to go into the actual script that I've written to display how these actual alerts work. And I have a little bit of information here. Basically, all we're doing is we're going to be entering a position, and then after, I think it's 20 seconds, it'll close the position, and then it will immediately reopen a position and close it. That's just so that we can get these alerts kind of one after the other periodically, just to kind of show you how it's actually going to work. So let's go ahead and actually add this to the chart. And it's going to take a second to bring the first one up, because I believe it's going to wait the 20 seconds initially before it'll actually throw a sell. The way this script was written, the first entry was at the very beginning of the maximum candles back in the back testing or the chart. So you can see we had our first one. It sold the position from where it opened originally, and now 20 seconds from this entry it will close, and you'll notice we're on a 1 second chart. So I do this so you can kind of see things more like they would be if you were looking at a chart in real time over the course of extended periods of time. So this way we kind of get to execute in real time, but it yeah, that way we can get our alerts every second pretty much. So you can see 20 seconds after the buy, it sold, and then it bought immediately again. I'm not worried about profits or anything like this. We're just worried about the alerts right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an alert and make sure we select our strategy. We're going to show a pop-up, and instead of showing all of this information, actually we will show the position size, but we are also going to be showing that order.alert message, or order_alert_message, excuse me. It's going to take me a while to get used to this. Okay, so every time we get an alert, so on every buy and every sell, we are going to see the position size and the alert message for the order. Now let's go ahead and create this. It's going to come up over here in our alert section, and it'll come up with an alert in our alert log. We'll get the pop-up on the screen, but you'll notice we have two different messages for the buy order, there's a buying message, and for the sell order, there's a selling message. And we should get one pretty soon now after the 20 seconds are over. Okay. And just remember, their alert system is running on the back end. So even though you'll see this on these 1 second charts, it might take a couple seconds. And that's exactly what happened. So let me actually just click on one of the alerts. This was the first one that we got. Oh, it's not letting me open it. Okay, so the message that comes through, you can see we got buying because we aren't in a position. And you can see that was the message that we set in the alert message down here. And 1 is the quantity. So our position size was 1, and that is our message. And you can see here our message. I was hoping I could click on this and see the full thing, but you can actually see when I hover over it, as long as my head's not in the way. You can see on all of these the position size and then the alert message per the order. So you can see with that placeholder, it actually changes the message based on the type of order that we've done. So that's pretty cool. And you'll notice, if you've been following the tutorial series here on the channel, that, and let me turn this alert off because I am not wanting to get these anymore. Okay, so you will notice if you've done the tutorial series, we talked about if statements, and we had to kind of nest our if statements within each other. Now we actually have an else if that we can use, that instead of placing our if statement on the next line like this and kind of nesting things further and further, if we had more and more logic, we can now actually do it in line here, and your spacing requirements still remain the same on your new lines. But you can just say else if your new condition and continue on. And if we wanted to, we could just do another else if, another else if, and you can finally do else. And that is the last scenario that you would do with this particular statement. But I know there was a lot to cover in this one. The strategy alerts are a new feature. It can be kind of complicated. If you have any questions, please comment or reach out on Twitter or Discord or Facebook, one or the other. You can see all the links for those in the description of the video below. While you're down there, please like the video. That helps a whole lot. If you've watched this whole video, I would imagine you like it. So please also subscribe, because I do a lot of other videos like this, and you'll get to see a lot of the updates that come out from TradingView probably before you'll see them just about anywhere else for the most part. But other than that, that is it for this video. Thank you and have a great day.